we have to be sensitive to the fact that these are young folks, I think potentially exploited by agents and other folks who are going to be circling these kids. So again, unionization and collective bargaining could actually be an answer.
But we've got some more news, and this news is positive out of Dartmouth. Like I said, we mentioned this in Last Week in Southern Labor. Even though it is not in the South, it is definitely going to have implications for the South, especially with the prevalence of college athletics in the Southern United States. But Dartmouth basketball players now have a union election scheduled for March the 5th. This comes after the National Labor Relations Board regional director issued a decision and direction of election ordering the union election because Dartmouth has the right to and they issued this. The controversy has always been, are college athletes players, or are they workers? Are college athletes workers? And then therefore are they subject to the protections of the National Labor Relations Act?
Right, and the other wrinkle to it is whether it's a public or private university.
Right, and Dartmouth is a private university.
Correct.
So, the regional director concluded, quote, because Dartmouth has the right to control the work performed by the Dartmouth men's basketball team, and the players perform that work in exchange for compensation, I find that the petitioned for basketball players are employees within the meaning of the National Labor Relations Act. So this election is ordered since the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel issued her memo in September 2021 with her guidance on employee status of players at academic institutions. So we'll see what happens. Something similar happened with Northwestern University in 2015, where an election was scheduled and held among college athletes, but the ballots were never actually counted. Because in 2015, there was a rule stating that when there is a pending, request for review with the board, that ballots can't be counted. Well, that rule has been rescinded. So regardless of whether there is a request for review in this election, these ballots will be counted. So we're going to see what happened. The National Labor Relations Board press secretary sent some other related cases in the college athlete, the college athlete labor relations world. She mentioned that the Region 31 of the NLRB issued an unfair labor practice complaint against the University of Southern California, the Pac-12 Conference, and the NCAA as joint employers, alleging that the joint employers have maintained unlawful handbook rules and unlawfully misclassified scholarship and non-scholarship women's and men's basketball and men's football players as student athletes. And so this is interesting. This is an interesting case because you mentioned, Adam, that one of the kinks is it a public or a private university? Well, the NLRB in California is alleging that the University of California, which is a public institution, University of Southern California.
Now, see, is USC public or private?
I think it's public. Isn't USC public?
I think it may be a private school. I'm about to find out. University of Southern California is a private institution.
Okay, so that's interesting. But nevertheless, they're saying that the University of Southern California is a joint employer with Pac-12 and the NCAA.
Right.
Pac-12 and the NCAA are uncontroversially private sector employers. And so if you have a joint employer rule coming down affirming that from the federal courts, then you could see college athletes in the South at public institutions making similar arguments that, hey, we are, we have joint employers, both the University of Alabama and the NCAA. And so therefore, because one of our employers is a private institution, we have the protections of the National Labor Relations Act, potentially.
Right. And you could also see where, potentially it spreads to some of the private schools first. Maybe that's where it does take off. Like a Vanderbilt, for example, is in the SEC, which is the money maker of NCAA. So that would be interesting.
Right.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Right. And one of the original arguments that the NCAA had against this, one of many, but one of them was that if the college athletes were able to unionize, then that would create an uneven playing field among college football institutions, and it would just be totally, it would not be workable. Well, with the recent name, image, and likeness ruling from the NCAA allowing college football players to profit from that, obviously the terrain has been totally changed. And it's just totally different all across the country at different universities for different players at the same university. And so that argument is totally blown out of the water now. And so they don't have that.
Yeah, and let me just say on that issue, I mean, I think that really is important, that the landscape has changed dramatically. You have the name, image, likeness that is generating a ton of money. It's so uneven in how it's being distributed. It seems to be very unregulated. It's Wild West is what some of these coaches are calling it. You also have the transfer portal that has been loosened up, and so you have kids transferring left and right from school to school. Even starting quarterbacks of star programs are leaving. And me personally, I'm all for the athletes to be empowered and to do what they think is best for their life, because they're the one doing it, right? Not me. I'm just watching it on TV. So what gives me the right to say how they should live their life? But I honestly think collective bargaining could be a way to bring some standards, some equity, and some guardrails to the whole regime of college football and college basketball as well. Now, I'm also curious, how does this impact the other sports, the non-revenue producing sports, so to speak? Because let's face it, track and field, they're not really generating a lot of revenue for the university. It's not the same as Alabama football, which is a multi-million-dollar business. And so I'm curious to know how that's going to go. My heart is certainly with the players, and my instinct is to say organize collectively.
Right.
And whatever that looks like, the final product, who knows? But I do think that by organizing collectively, they can ensure that the most of them get most of what they need. That's what I really think. Because right now you have a system where there are some players who are going to be benefiting quite a bit, but there's a lot who are going to be left out in the lurch for various reasons. And also, I think, we have to be sensitive to the fact that these are young folks who are, I think, potentially exploited by agents and other folks who are going to be circling these kids, realizing there's money out there to be made off of them. So again, I think unionization and collective bargaining could actually be an answer really to standardize and to normalize the situation that has been in such flux over recent years. I think the NFL, the NBA, they all, clearly obvious examples, right? All of those are organized, all of those are unionized, and they negotiate contracts, and there's still plenty of room for individual talents to make more, right? LeBron James makes more money than a bench rider.
Right.
And that's fair. Right? He's LeBron James. And if you're not making it off the bench, it's reasonable to expect he wants more compensation. Whatever your opinions about LeBron.
Right. So, people say that unions are socialist and communist, and that communism is
everything's the same.
Everything is the same, and actually, the argument that socialists make is that workers should be paid for the value that they produce, right? And so obviously, LeBron James creates a lot more value than a bench rider.
Yeah, so interesting dynamics are going to play out with this. I'm excited to see where it goes. I know Means TV covered this week and mentioned, if Dartmouth gets a union, is that a unique recruiting tool, right? Are there going to be players who are going to be like, hey, maybe that's the place I want to go,
Right.
where I do have this collective voice and I have the potential to get a contract and get something in writing. It could be interesting to see how that plays out. And, me personally, were I a talented athlete, I'd certainly be paying attention.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.